Imagine eating nothing but freeze-dried paste for 6 months straight.
Yeah, that sounds brutal.
Right. So what protocol would you break for just one single fresh apple? Well, in Survivor's Log, The Shadow in Space, the answer is the total biological collapse of the International Space Station.
It really goes off the rails
It really
fast.
does. So today, we're taking a deep dive into this chilling record. We're exploring exactly what happens when, unchecked corporate secrecy and basic human craving just collide in an inescapable vacuum. So, okay, let's unpack this.
I love this one because the inciting incident is just so deceptive.
Picture the ultimate forbidden fruit for the Garden of Eden, right? But weaponized for zero gravity.
Exactly. It's a terrifyingly simple trap. The crew on the ISS finds this unmanifested canister floating in the docking bay. It's purportedly a donation from a pharmaceutical giant called Harborage.
Uh-huh.
And inside is this perfectly intact, like light-absorbing black apple.
With a very cryptic little note attached, of course. It says, enjoy ED, along with the Latin phrase, tenebrae no ligare, meaning darkness cannot bind.
Which is deeply
It's
unsettling.
a massive red flag, especially considering the apple literally absorbs ambient light.
But it's a red flag that gets completely ignored, largely because of basic human psychology. I mean, the sensory deprivation of space makes that fresh fruit irresistible.
They just had to have it.
Exactly. So they crack the capsule open, and the narrative just instantly shifts from a simple temptation into an absolute biological catastrophe.
Yeah, someone takes a bite, and crewmate Sammy's cellular structure immediately begins to degrade. He literally melts from the inside out.
And his flesh is just drifting up into the air in zero G. It is so visceral.
The carnage is just gruesome.
Yeah.
Sandy violently bites another crew member, Sergio. And then there's Lauren.
Oh, God, Lauren.
I know. She dies from the attack, but then she reanimates later. She's got these writhing black veins replacing her eyes, and she's hunting the narrator strictly by smell and sound.
The pathogen is aggressively fast, yes. But, what stands out is how quickly their operational logic unravels. It's this alien-level biological infection that completely shatters their reality.
Well, hold on. I actually have to push back on that.
Oh.
Yeah, you say it's an alien-level infection, but the flawless apple and that cryptic note feel entirely man-made to me, which makes the crew's medical response seem less like panic and more like, frankly, gross negligence.
How so?
Well, after Sergio gets bitten by a melting, mutating crewmate, they just give him a shot of morphine and send him to bed. I mean, why wouldn't they immediately initiate a full station quarantine?
Well, what's fascinating here is how profound psychological denial takes over. When faced with an engineered anomaly they don't understand, human brains just default to known protocols.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, they try treating it like a standard trauma, administering anti-anxiety meds like Ativan or morphine for pain, completely failing to grasp they're dealing with a pathogen that actively hijacks the central nervous system.
Oh, wow. So that explains the hallucinations.
Mhm.
Because the narrator mentions the darkness of the station feeling alive during their sleep cycle, claiming the shadows themselves actually start singing.
Precisely. Those singing shadows aren't ghosts. They are the pathogen rewriting the narrator's auditory processing and altering their brain chemistry.
It really scales the horror perfectly from a visceral infection into a literal, inescapable psychological nightmare.
And that auditory hijacking is what forces the narrator into that desperate, stealthy crawl across the station just to reach the crew return vehicle, or CRV.
It's incredibly tense. I mean, the narrator is clinging to the ceiling of the docking bay, hiding in those very same shadows, having to whistle to distract the blind, mutated Lauren.
It's a brilliant survival tactic, honestly. They lure her away just long enough for the CRV hatch authentication system to slowly, agonizingly tick up to 100%.
And the narrator escapes the biological nightmare and crashes safely into the ocean.
Safe at last. Or so they think.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the psychological horror is really just beginning. The survivor is recovering in an Earth hospital, thinking they're safe. Then, Iris Dagenhart walks in.
ED herself.
Yep, the author of the note and the granddaughter of Harborage's founder.
And she brings a very specific gift basket for our survivor, filled with fruit, and I'm quoting her directly here, exclusively from my orchard.
It just confirms the horrifying truth. ED orchestrated this entire slaughter. The ISS wasn't just a location. It was a hermetically sealed vacuum chamber.
Harper's used it as a perfectly contained clean room for a live biological weapons test.
knowing that zero gravity would accelerate the airborne transmission.
Exactly. Think about the sheer cynicism of this experiment. I mean, Harper's didn't need a high-tech delivery system.
No, they didn't.
They simply weaponized a fundamental human vulnerability, which is the psychological starvation of isolation.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The true horror here isn't the mutating virus itself.
No, definitely not.
It's the realization that to a megacorporation, these highly trained astronauts aren't pioneers. They're just heavily monitored lab rats whose isolation makes them the perfect control group.
It's
It
terrifying.
leaves us with a deeply unsettling reality to ponder. If Harboridge engineered this apocalyptic weapon as a carefully controlled experiment up in space, what exactly is their plan for Edie's orchard now that the fruit is here on Earth?